Saving Face is a 2004 classic and one of the most memorable lesbian romantic comedies. The film is not only about sapphic romance but also about the bravery required to live openly and accept one's true identity. Will is an accomplished doctor who brings pride to both her mother and grandparents. Being a respectful and obedient daughter, she travels to Flushing, New York to attend the Mandarin Chinese dance event where mothers eagerly introduce their children to potential partners, hoping to arrange a suitable relationship. Although she isn't very excited about going, Will attends mainly to keep her widowed mother happy. That evening, however, she notices a new girl named Vivian, who immediately captures her attention. Soon afterward, they meet again, seemingly by coincidence, at Will's workplace. Vivian later leaves a note on a vending machine inviting Will to come watch her dance. That small moment quietly marks the start of their romantic relationship. Still, Will struggles from the beginning with fully committing to it. The situation becomes even more complicated when her mother suddenly appears at her apartment after being kicked out by her own parents once they discover she is pregnant outside of marriage by a man she refuses to identify. With her mother now living under the same roof and gradually taking control of her routine, Will becomes trapped between the responsibility of being a loyal daughter and the desire to pursue her love with Vivian. When discussing lesbian romantic comedies, there are only a few that truly stand out, and this film easily belongs among the best of them. Compared with Imagine Me and You, which I talked about previously, this movie clearly has a more independent, low-budget feel. It was written and directed by Alice Wu as her debut feature, and audiences may also recognize her from another charming queer film, The Half of It. Saving Face was created with a very limited budget, something that shows in its softer visual style and modest cinematography. Even so, the filmmakers used what they had remarkably well, and the story never feels restricted by its financial limitations. For instance, the dramatic confrontation between Will and Vivian near the end appears to happen in what looks like a subway tunnel rather than a large airport location. However, the strength of the performances and the quality of the writing more than compensate for this difference. The screenplay itself is sharp and efficient, with every scene contributing meaningfully to the story. The film also skillfully incorporates traditional romantic comedy elements such as the adorable first meeting, the emotional obstacles that separate the couple, and the hopeful ending that audiences expect. These familiar tropes are presented with the light and warm tone typical of the genre, making the story enjoyable and satisfying to watch. At the same time, the narrative also challenges certain rom-com cliches. For example, when the classic rush to the airport moment occurs, it does not immediately lead to a dramatic reunion between the two women as viewers might anticipate. On a deeper level, although the romance encourages Will to challenge the limits placed on her life, the real emotional core of the movie lies in the relationship she shares with her mother. Both women must eventually learn to assert their independence and understand each other beyond the traditional expectations of a mother-daughter bond. Will's personal journey is closely tied to the unique environment of the Mandarin Chinese community in Flushing. The film presents a clear picture of the cultural pressures and expectations surrounding her life as she slowly begins to accept herself as a queer woman. Through moments such as her grandfather reacting strongly to her mother's pregnancy outside marriage, her mother quietly criticizing aspects of Will's lifestyle, and the constant gossip from judgmental neighbors, the audience witnesses the complicated social environment that shaped Will's fears and forced her to hide her identity. The characters throughout the film are carefully developed, resulting in a diverse and engaging group of personalities that support the narrative beautifully. Because the story is rooted in such a specific cultural context, the film is also able to deliver a broader and more universal message about the struggle between honoring family expectations and living an authentic life. By the conclusion of the story, spoilers ahead for those who prefer to avoid details, Will eventually discovers a way to unite both parts of her life. She finds a balance that allows her to remain connected to her community while also openly embracing her relationship, just as her mother begins confronting her own choices. As time passes, Will learns how to set healthy boundaries with her mother so that she can manage both aspects of her life. Interestingly, their relationship actually grows stronger once they break free from the pressures and expectations that previously controlled them. The film ultimately presents a hopeful message that Will does not need to abandon her cultural background in order to live honestly as a gay woman. This is why it was such a clever decision for the filmmakers to stage Will and Vivian's reunion not at an airport, as many romantic comedies would do, but instead at the weekly community dance surrounded by friends and family. Even though some of the neighborhood gossips appear judgmental throughout much of the story, the moment when the two women share a kiss on the dance floor is surprisingly accepted by the majority of the people present. When Will publicly asks Vivian to dance in front of everyone, the moment clearly symbolizes her growth and shows that she will no longer allow other people's opinions to control her choices or prevent her from being with the woman she loves. I also particularly enjoy the final moment shown during the credits sequence. In that scene, the mother and daughter sit together with their unconventional partners beside them. There is a humorous interaction where the mother secretly cooperates with her daughter-in-law before casually asking when she might expect grandchildren. children. This moment works as a clever way to demonstrate how dramatically things have changed. Her mother has reached a point where she fully accepts her daughter and her sexuality, while at the same time some familiar expectations still remain now that Will has found the person she wants to spend her life with. The performances across the entire cast are warm and sincere, and the chemistry between Will and Vivian feels believable and natural. The love scene in particular stands out because it highlights their comfortable and joyful bond, rather than simply focusing on physical intimacy. Of course, I won't pretend that seeing the two women together isn't also enjoyable in its own way. Considering the era when the movie was released, the film was actually quite daring for the genre. My only minor complaint, and I openly admit this might come from my own sapphic bias, is that I wish the story spent a little more time exploring the early stages of Will and Vivian's relationship. Their romance moves rather quickly into conflict, so viewers do not get much time to simply enjoy their happiness before the problems begin. That said, it remains a very small criticism, and it makes sense when remembering that the central focus of the film is really the evolving dynamic between mother and daughter.